Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park. And we have such a great guest this week. I'm so excited.
This is huge for us. This person is doing us a huge favor.
Oh, no. Come on.
Humble little podcast. We're in the presence of greatness here, everyone.
You guys are very kind.
Well, listeners, you have a little teaser there. You know how to read, so you already know who it is. But you heard their voice, their magical voice. Yeah, enough about us, Youngmi. Is it cool if I introduce our guest this week?
Yeah, of course. I'm so ready.
Let's do it. Listeners, you're in for a treat. As I said before, your guest this week is a content creator and singer-songwriter. Everyone, please give your ears to Sheena Melwani.
Yay. Hello, everyone.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure that I just feel like you have diehard fans who are probably just like hyperventilating right now. So welcome, Sheena fans.
Yes.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome to the Feeling Asian podcast. And Youngmi, I feel like we got to be on our best behavior because the Sheena Army. I've heard rumblings that
really
they're diehard. They're diehard.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. I was like doing research, but I didn't hear about that. Well, what's up with did they cancel like? Remember when like the K-pop BTS Army canceled like a political event? Is it that level?
Oh my gosh.
Just
Sheena.
about, yes. It is just at that ferocity, yes.
I don't know about any Sheena Army, but I do know that if there is one that exists, they are loving and kind and joyful and always laughing.
Well, that makes sense because I feel like your content is just extremely comforting and just loving, and I think joyful is a great word for it. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you and your positive vibes on the show.
I know.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. That's really,
Youngmi
really
and
nice
I
of you
need
guys.
all the positive vibes we can get.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
We're a couple of negative Nancys. I'm sorry. We're trying not to be, but like it's hard to.
Well, the pink hair just kind of does not sit well with the negative. I don't believe you.
No, it's I think that it's
you
like,
have this like exuberant, beautiful, positive pink hair.
Thank you. It's a trick. Yeah, it's like I'm trying to trick people into thinking that I'm going to be all fun and games, and then blammo, hit them with a negativity. I'm just kidding.
Well, Sheena, we're so excited to learn a little bit more about you and your work. And before we ask you how you feel, Youngmi, how are you feeling?
Oh man, I'm feeling very excited. No. Now I feel like I can't be my negative self. I feel very.
No, do you, girl? Do you?
Okay, I'm gonna be authentic. Here we go. To be very honest, I feel very excited, but I guess this is. I like talking about this. Whenever something good happens in life, it's always like a balance. I feel like there's good parts and there's bad parts. So I bought tickets to go to see my parents in Korea for the first time since the pandemic.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's been very hard to have them that far, and obviously, as everyone knows, because of all the pandemic restrictions, and Korea has been especially very rigid, and I could have gone, but I just didn't think that I wanted to spend 2 weeks in quarantine, blah, blah, blah. So I'm finally going, and then I had a little bit of but then, I'm sure everyone that like visits their parents and hangs out with their parents knows that, it's like you're happy to see them, but then it also comes with a lot of family drama. And then you're like, why am I even here? Christmas is ruined again, so I guess there was like a little bit of a dramatic incident with my parents where I bought plane tickets for everybody to go to Saipan, which is an island that I grew up in, Sheena.
That's so nice.
It's in Micronesia, but it's very close to Korea. So the tickets are only they're like $300 a person, which is expensive, but it was like doable. So I got everyone tickets, and then my dad was like, I'm not gonna go, and I was like, what? And then
is he scared of COVID?
No, this is what happened, Sheena, and this is where the drama kicks. And my mom was she told me to secretly buy a ticket for him, my mom. And she was like, don't worry about it. We're going to make him go, like that.
Gotta love moms.
And then I guess they had an argument, and then it came out. Well, this is the thing. My dad is like an anti-vaxxer, and he like didn't want to say that to me because he didn't want to get in an argument with me, right?
Right.
And so he has never told me that. But of course, my mom told me months ago that he's refusing to get vaccinated. So I already knew that. And so my dad didn't want to go because he didn't want to have to deal with the quarantine restrictions and the island that we're going to and coming back to Korea, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't want to say that to me because he's never said that to me, the anti-vax thing. So he didn't want to have an argument. So he was just like, no, I don't want to go because I don't like the beach or whatever, which is who doesn't like the beach, right? And so then I got so angry and I was like, I just felt very unreasonably angry, which is my motto. But just all the time, just being Korean. But
0 to 60 and like,
what do you mean? And so
everyone likes the
beach. People are just like, calm down.
Vax or not, you must go to the beach and love it.
You're gonna go and you're gonna love it, Dad.
And you're gonna have a good time, Dad.
Get your swimsuit on. No, so then
that's hard.
So then I got really unreasonably angry, and then I like talked to my therapist, of course, and she was like, well, it's like basically we came to the conclusion that it's been just like a lifetime of, I think in my family dynamic, we've always made decisions surrounding my dad. Like it's like whatever he wants and nobody cares what anyone else wants. And I think it was like a lifetime of having to deal with that came up. And that's why it was like, but in that moment, my mom started yelling at me. She was like, I told you not to buy it. Like it was just a Korean screaming match, you know?
Oh no,
like classic Korean screaming match, TM.
Just backstab you a la Brutus. She's like, yeah, let's get the tickets. Why did you get the tickets?
Literally, she was like, she's the one that told me to get it, and then she yelled at me. And then
that is hard. That is frustrating.
And then I told my therapist, and she was like, "Oh, it's probably because in that moment you were really sad, and nobody was making room for your emotions." And then I was like, "I was sad."
Well, you know what? You can go to the beach if your dad doesn't want to go to the beach.
Yeah,
you can go and take your mom, and I mean, it's hard. I think there is an Asian factor here, right? Where people like to just do things together.
Yeah,
right.
And everybody has to be there together. And as much as I love that, I also feel like in these uncertain times, and and I know that, you know, people are probably sick and tired of hearing about COVID and uncertainty and this and that, but it's still very real. It's still running rampant, and everybody has to just do what their level of comfort is. And I think that's sort of my motto these days. Like, you do you.
Yeah.
If it's gonna bring you joy to go and spend a couple of days, I think you should do that. And I think if your mom wants to come, she can do that, and she can make her own choices. And if she wants to stay back and pretend like she had nothing to do with the process, then, you know, I don't think that you should stop.
No, I'm not going. And this is the interesting thing. I'm definitely going to go. My mom's going to go. My son's going to go. But this is the interesting thing. I didn't even, like what you said, Sheena, I didn't even care if my dad went or not. It was this other emotion that was like boiling in me since fucking birth that came out. Do you know what I mean? That
you had to make yourself smaller because dad wanted something.
Yes, exactly. And then my therapist was like, do you even want your dad to go? And I was like, not really. And I was like, I mean, no offense, Dad. I don't know if he's listening, but like, I mean, I do, but obviously, if he doesn't want,
we love you, Dad.
If he doesn't want to go, I don't want him to drag him there. Obviously, like what you said,
100%.
And she was like, yeah.
I think that that's a really hard thing to sort of make peace with.
Yeah.
That everybody just has to do what feels best to them, and if you don't want to go, like, you just have to check your own feelings that your joy and your happiness is not coming from anybody else's, you know?
Right.
And I also feel like a little annoyed that I don't, you know, if you do have beliefs that you're like anti-vax or whatever your beliefs are about COVID, even if they're different than mine, that's totally fine. But I did feel annoyed that he didn't bring it up and didn't give me a chance to respond to that. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I might not have like gotten mad. I might have been like, okay, Dad, well, that's your belief and you're, you know, it's valid and you're welcome to that.
Right.
but I didn't even get a
Right.
chance.
He just assumed. He
Yeah.
assumed that that's how you were going
Yes,
to react.
exactly.
Mm.
Anyway, that's how I'm feeling. I'm a little annoyed, but mostly I'm very excited about the trip because I'm really excited. And I'm excited that my
Yeah.
son's gonna see
100%.
where it grew up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about you, Brian? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling old and young. That's how I'm feeling. So let me elaborate on that. I used to joke a lot about this, and I'd hear other comedians joke about it, but I'm 32 now, and I just feel like ever since I turned 30, my body has not been running optimally, like
Oh,
at
boy.
100%. Like
Right.
constantly, there's just one thing wrong, and I think
Right.
this past week I've just fully accepted. All right, well, I guess this is just what it's gonna be like until the rest of time, because I can't remember the last time where everything's just going smooth sailing. So this past week, funny enough, I spent a lot of time at the beach because I was on vacation for a couple of weeks, a few weeks back. Yeah, and I got my first sunburn ever. And
Wait, can you burn?
I can burn. It was my first time. And
I can't. I'm not capable of, my skin is not able to burn.
Well,
Nice.
I thought
Superpower.
I
Love that.
couldn't. It's great that you don't, because
Yeah.
this past week my skin has been peeling like crazy.
Oh, no.
So yeah, and it's my first time dealing with it. I'm like, okay, great. My skin hurts, but then I just
My
like
skin hurts. Not my back.
skin hurts.
Not my knees.
right,
My skin.
it's just my skin hurts, and then I went grocery shopping, and I stepped wrong, and like I threw out my back, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on with my body? Like, this is just so in that sense I feel a little old, because
Right.
I'm not fighting against it. Like, I find
Right.
myself, this is a battle that I'm just conceding
Just
to
accept
internally,
it.
and I'm accepting it, that this
Yes.
is just
Go
the
with
new
it.
normal. One day I'll just wake up and my neck will start hurting for no reason at all. and
100%.
That's
This
right.
is part and parcel
it's
of
just
growing older.
this is just how it's gonna be. But
Yes.
I also feel young because I went to
because you're 32.
because I'm
Yeah.
32.
Talk
Yes.
about Brian.
No, but it's all contextual, of course. It's all contextual, and I went to my first concert earlier this week since like pre-pandemic, like a sold out
Oh.
big concert. And
Who'd you see?
It was for a band called Hot Chip, and
Okay.
it's a band I used to listen to a lot in high school, and they're just one of those staple indie bands that have been around since the early 2000s. And I felt young because, well, for one, I don't really take time to do these sorts of things, like go to concerts and like enjoy myself, because I'm quite a workaholic, and it just doesn't cross my mind to indulge in these sorts of things. But then the second thing was like, it's a band that is very much for millennials. Like, I don't think any Gen Z would know who the fuck Hot Chip is.
Right.
They're not like their songs aren't trending
don't know
on
them.
TikTok.
Yeah, I don't
And so
know either.
when I went there, it was just like, everyone was firmly a millennial. Like, I don't think there was
Right.
anyone below the age of 29, and everyone was just jamming out. And it made me feel so young, because for one, it like, satiated this like nostalgia factor of like, oh
Yeah.
wow, like I can't believe I was in high school when I first heard this song. This is great. But it was just like a
Yeah.
bunch of old, like, just like upper crust millennials like me, like
Right.
vibing out, and like, this is a safe space, like we're not gonna get judged by any cool Gen Z like TikTokers. And yeah, it was super
Wearing
I know that.
Skinny
I know that
jeans?
space well.
fun. Lots of skinny, lots of big hats, just like wide brim
Nice.
hats. I don't know, people were still wearing those, but I'm down.
People at a certain age, I think, realize that they just have to do what works for them.
They gotta wear
Goes back to the same, like, you do you.
the wide brim hat keeps them from getting sunburned
Yeah.
at the beach.
Brian, you need a
Brian.
wide brim
I
hat.
should.
now.
I
You
know,
need-
I
you need
I'm gonna
one.
send you one.
Oh, please. But yeah, so that's how I've been feeling. So, ups and downs, but overall, great week and filled with a lot of fun. So I'm feeling upbeat and positive right now.
Awesome.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
Wait, how was that your first sunburn in your entire life, Brian? What kind of
I'm
childhood
shocked.
did you have?
You either sunburn or you don't,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't
No,
have that first experience at 33 or 32.
no, I think something must have changed in my, like,
Did you not wear sunblock?
I didn't wear sunblock.
Oh.
Yeah, that changes
You have to wear
everything.
sunblock. That changes everything.
Well, no, like I grew up playing tennis and I was always in the sun like as a kid, and I didn't really wear that much sunblock then, and I would just get tan and wouldn't sunburn. But
Yeah.
lately, I think again
Because
just
you've been
goes in-
inside. Because your skin gets like used to it, or because Sheena, I'm like you.
Yeah.
Like I do burn, but it's very rare. Because I think that like my skin's good at if it gets gradual sun, it just kind of builds up
Yeah.
a tolerance. But if
you
I
also have to wear sunblock.
yeah.
We must wear sunblock.
But if I
Yeah,
went
that's
out
so-
like in the
It's
middle
like
of
hair
winter, like on vacation, I would just burn.
I pulled
you know? Like-
yeah. I pulled a young me's dad just right now. I was omitting the fact that I wasn't wearing sunblock because I assumed you all would be upset at me.
I
well,
just
you know what?
burned. I don't know why.
I grew up in the thinking of like, oh, you just have to put on suntan lotion because you just need this like beautiful brown color. Because, you know, as an Indian girl, they actually don't encourage darkness, surprisingly.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they sort of say like, if you're dark, they equate it with not beautiful, but like, oh, okay, she's pretty, but she's dark.
Yeah.
But my mom and dad just embraced that. They're like, you're beautiful. And if you have a little, my mom loved sitting in the sun and just getting tanned.
Yeah.
And so we would go out and put on suntan lotion until we realized that's horrible for your skin.
Oh wow.
Whoops. And then it was like, oh no, we have to protect ourselves and we have to do it a different way.
Right.
And we love the color, but we have to just do it gradually. But I literally used to like sit out in the sun and roast when I was younger.
Oh,
I
simpler
feel
time.
like objectively, everyone looks better with a tan. That's my person.
yeah.
I know that's a subjective thing to say.
Right,
I was
but
like,
it's totally
objectively.
cultural because it's similar in Korean culture where
Yeah.
like
They want you to be
they want
fair.
very
Very
fair.
fair.
Yeah.
And my mom, you know, she's still rocking the like an arm sleeve while she drives to make
Yeah.
sure that every part of her skin's
Oh.
covered.
Yeah, it's a crazy conversation to keep having. Like I keep having this conversation with so many of my friends where they're like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, we got to cover ourselves from the sun. I'm like, the sun is your friend if you just handle it nicely. Like
Yeah.
put on some sunblock. Vitamin D is good for you.
Yeah.
You just have to be careful.
Yeah.
And don't be crazy. Like don't hide under a big, you know, and I have a friend, she is always hiding under a hat and I love her.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly telling her like, you are beautiful. She's like, no, I'm so dark. And I'm like, no, you're gorgeous.
Right.
Let that out. But I don't know. Everybody has a different opinion of
Right.
Yeah. But
what is beautiful.
Are beauty standards still I know this is getting like slightly off topic, but are beauty standards in India, like even amongst younger generations, like still adhere to that belief that, you know, fairness is beautiful,
I
or
think-
has it become a little bit more
yeah.
inclusive since your mother's time?
I mean, I think, yes, I definitely think inclusivity is a big like pillar right now, right? So people are definitely moving in that direction. But one of the most popular brands of facial cream or is Fair and Lovely.
Right.
You know, it's okay. I say this, but this is based on a lot of just my preconceived
Right.
beliefs and notions.
Yeah.
I haven't been to India in a long time, so maybe things have changed and I just don't know it. But I do think, like growing up, I heard a lot of that, like, oh, if only you were just a little fairer, and that's something that. Again, I said, my parents never put that on me. It was
That's
more
great.
extended family that we would hear that from,
Yeah.
or like the older generations. But I just don't. I tell my kids like, you are gorgeous, however you are, and beauty is not what you see on the outside. That's the other thing. It's like it has to start from the inside.
You know, I'm
Right,
really
right.
glad that you said that because, you know, I think people have heard about Asian, you know, like East Asian and South Asian beauty standards, like are obsessed with lighter, fairer skin. But the thing that you said about your parents, I think is really important because I have a son and I was always like freaked out. Like I want him to like, body positivity and accept who he is, and I want him to know those things. But then I'm like, but I'm scared that he's going to go out in the world and pick up these messages from other sources. But I realized that if at home, you know, if we're telling our kids that we're their like foundation of stability, so maybe they'll go out and somebody will be like, oh, you're too dark or you're too short or whatever. But when they come home, we're going to be like, I accept you. And that solid foundation helps them have confidence, I think.
100%.
And then realize that
I
those
totally
people are
agree.
wrong, right?
I totally agree. Yeah, and the other thing is like, I don't know what the percentage is, but they spend such a huge percentage at home with their parents.
Yeah.
That it's really what they learn at home first.
Right.
And you give them all the foundational tools that they need to go out into the world and know what to filter and how to filter it. But that's honestly why I put out the kind of content that I do, because I know that there's a whole world of youth out there looking to me and waiting for that, what to absorb from it.
Right.
And that's the kind of positivity that I want to put out into the world, that body positivity and that that beauty does not reside on the inside. It's more from from the outside rather, but it's more from the inside out.
Right.
Well, I want to ask you all about that because I'm fascinated. But before we ask you, how are you feeling, Sheena?
Exactly.
I am still riding the high from this past Wednesday, which I don't know if you guys heard, but I sang the anthem at TD Garden for the Celtics game, the Celtics Bucks game.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is so sick.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience, and I still feel like I'm on that adrenaline high.
Yeah.
And I can feel it tapering off, but I'm so filled with gratitude every day for the crazy world that I've found myself in. And there are definitely days where things are hard and making content is a little bit challenging. But I'm very grateful for the opportunities that come our way. And so that was one really, really cool one that I'm still trying to coast through.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations.
That's amazing.
And
Thank you.
yeah,
Wow.
The only thing that would have made that night better is if the Celtics would have won, but
Whatever. No one was there to see the Celtics. They were there to hear you.
that's right.
Sheena.
It was awesome. It was such an awesome experience.
How many people were in the stadium?
I want to say that stadium fits about 18
my God.
to 20,000 people. Something like that.
yeah, this is for the NBA
And it was
playoffs,
full.
so
It was a
packed.
full house.
Yeah.
Yes, it was packed. And of course, everybody doesn't come in right at the beginning for the anthem, but it was full enough. The crowd, honestly, I felt like they propelled me forward through the anthem. It was just one of the most incredibly rewarding experiences to be performing at, because I started singing and within the first two lines they were cheering, and so I could feel their
that's awesome.
energy, and I was feeding off of that, and they fed off of my energy, and then we ping-ponged it back and forth, and it was such a delightful experience. It was so good for my soul.
Were you nervous at any point that you were going to forget
That
the
I was going to
lyrics?
throw up
or
on
throw
center,
up, or
yes,
forget the
yes.
lyrics? Because I'm already
No.
forgetting the
You're a
anthem, the
professional.
national
I
anthem.
know. I've been there. I've definitely sung my fair share of anthem prep where I've forgotten the words, and I think that I'm hopefully past that, where it's just I've understood it, I felt it, it's in my skin, it's in my it's at the tips of my fingertips.
Yeah.
Right.
But of course these things can happen, and somebody said to me last week, so I don't know if you guys heard this, but I sang the anthem at Fenway Park last week.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I
you're
know.
just on an
It's
anthem
wild,
tour
right?
now.
Yeah, I'm on an anthem tour. Anyone else want an anthem, just call me. So I did the anthem last week, and the gentleman, he was so sweet, but the gentleman who was helping me just sort of set up and do mic checks and stuff like that, he's like, look, we already know you can sing well.
Yeah.
But there's two ways out of this.
Right.
He said, you can sing well and you can remember all your words and you can do everything great and everyone will remember you, and as you walk through the stands, they'll all be, cheering you on. Or two, you can forget something, fall on your face, do something ridiculous, and then you'll be on the news and everyone will still remember you. And I was like,
That's true.
that's not helpful.
That is true.
Well, thank you.
No,
Yeah.
all press
So-
is good press.
I don't personally believe that, but he was very encouraging, and he's like, I think you'll do great. And if you don't, take solace in the fact that you'll be on the news tonight.
I love that. That's like, yeah, that's such sage wisdom that comes from characters like that.
Yes.
Like, they deliver in a way where it's like, oh, this is good advice. But if you
Yes,
actually take
yes.
a moment to process, you're like, wait, is it? I don't even know.
No, it was great.
It's great.
It was great because it took the, like, sometimes you go into these situations and you're like, am I good enough? You know, you have that sort of like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Right.
Am I worthy of being here? And
Yeah.
and then people look at me in my life that have heard me singing for, I don't even want to date myself, but that have heard me singing for years. Let's just
Right.
leave it at that.
Yeah.
And they look at me and they say, like, how is it that you, who have been singing for X number of years, still doubt yourself? You know you're a good singer. And I'm like, yeah, but am I good enough? You
Right.
know? And so to hear something
Yeah.
like that, it actually, it subtly put that fear down so easily and so quickly. It was like, okay, we already know you're good.
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do with that?
It just-
It's what you do with it that counts.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think this sort of leads us to our, you know, our next question. And you know,
yeah.
Sheena, it is you're an incredibly talented singer and songwriter. But
Thank you.
in addition to that, you're a content creator with a massive online presence. I mean, you have over 8 million followers on TikTok and over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And I guess just as an introduction for our listeners out there who may not have seen your work yet, how would you describe it?
Okay, so this body of work that we've created over the last 2 years, I wish I could say that I had this big genius moment where I'm like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. Ha ha ha, it's going to be amazing. And I'm going to create this huge following. I fell into this backwards, like, butt first. I don't know how I ended up here. It was the start of the pandemic, like everybody else, sitting at home, twiddling your thumbs, wondering, how am I going to make this a positive experience for my family?
Right.
Right? And I did what I always do. I turned to music. I turned on my Facebook Live function and I told my family to come on and bring me their requests, and they did. And it started with like 8 people, and then it grew to like 16 people, and then there were like maybe 42 people. Like it wasn't this, like, I didn't turn it on and find myself with hundreds of thousands of people there. It was I literally brought person by person by person by person with the help of my friends and family. And I would just be live and take requests in real time, like a human jukebox. I was like, okay, what do you guys want to hear? Let's just chat for an hour. Tell me what you want to hear. Because that's what makes me feel better, singing, connecting with people. So that's what I did. And one night after I was done with my live show. I had my camera set up and I had some makeup on, and I was like, okay, I'm going to just record content for tomorrow. And I was recording this song that was popular at the time. If the world was ending, you'd come over, right? You know that song? And then the interruptions started. And I found myself with like a live-in heckler.
Right.
And he did what he always did.
Yeah.
And I was like, I tried to keep going because I was recording, and he didn't realize that I was recording. And at the end, I just completely broke. And we had a nice laugh over it. And I was like, well, I can't put this on Instagram. And he's like, oh, you were recording? And I was like, yes, I was. And then it was like, I put it up online. My brother had said to me, get on TikTok. You need to get on TikTok now. This is like the platform to be on right now. Like
Right.
it's non-judgmental, non-political, non-perfect, non-everything.
They're not listening to Hot Chip. It's great.
Or maybe they are. And nobody cares. Like, you do
Right.
you.
Yeah.
So I ended up on this, like, I put my video up on TikTok and it just blew up overnight. It went viral. And so, you know, we tried again and that also did well. And we tried again and that also did well. And we found ourselves in this space where it was like, there's this need for joy. There's this need for humor. There's this need for positivity.
Yeah.
There's a need for music. Like, it just checked all of the boxes.
Yeah.
And it was one of those very cool serendipitous moments.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
I fell into the right place at the right time, at the right moment. And it worked.
I think this is a great place, Sheena, to go back to what you were discussing just a few minutes ago, where you said, you know, your, like, how your parents told you, oh, who cares if people think, oh, being light is prettier. You can be however you want. You're beautiful, right? And that foundation, and what you were saying, like a lot of people don't have that for so many reasons, right? Maybe it's their parents are not encouraging. Maybe their parents do sort of follow the status quo, and they'll say things like, oh, you have to be lighter. And so everybody needs that sort of like foundation of stability. And I think you were saying like that's what you provide people who for whatever reason don't have that. And I feel like watching your content, it's so comforting, and it's so
that's so nice.
It's
Thank
so
you.
I want to say wholesome, but I don't mean wholesome. I mean like,
no, it is. That is definitely
sure.
something we use. Yeah.
But it's like, it's like feeding this need that I think everybody has. And I definitely have for family and community that I don't actually have in my life. And when I was watching your content, what I kept thinking was, I wish that I had this for my son. Sorry, I'm not gonna fucking cry. That's so but do you know what I mean? That's what I kept thinking. I was like,
Totally.
I wish this was like my family, and we had, you know, like Sheena's playing, our aunt, or you know, my sister or somebody playing the piano, and then after dinner we're all just like goofing around and making these jokes, because that's like, it reminds me of my childhood growing up. So that's what I think why it's so wildly popular. Do you think that like that's valid, or how do you feel about that?
I think you nailed it. I think that that's what people were looking for, that levity and that familiarity and that comfort. And don't get me wrong, we had our moments where we were really, really sad too.
Yeah, of course.
I have to keep reminding people, like, my house there is a lot of happiness and there's a lot of laughter, but we struggle just like everybody else. You know, we go through our moments where we don't feel like talking to each other, and we go through moments where I'm fighting with my kids, or, you know, like I have those moments, and we don't always have this like happy-go-lucky, you know, those are 30-second to 45-second clips. You know, maximum 1 minute. So, and they're genuine and they're authentic, because I never know what is going to be said. And I can always count on it being something wildly ridiculous, and I like to laugh. And we love for the kids to also see that. And so I think that levity is that thread that it brought to our online community. And I think that it really gave them a sense of, okay, I know these are tough times, but come laugh with us, you know? Come find joy here. And come like see and there's nothing, I don't think there was anything intimidating about it, because here's this girl who
that's a good point,
is just like everybody else. I'm literally just like everybody else,
except you sing at Fenway Park. I mean, you have a wonderful voice. But I know what you mean, though.
I really do like. I love what I'm doing as far as like my music is concerned, and I've been working on this for years and years and years. It's not like I just popped into Fenway Park one day. I've been working on it for years, and I've been struggling through it for years. Of course, yeah. But here's a girl who she has her job, and then she has her home life, and she goes to work, and then she's home with her family, and like they're just finding this balance.
And I think that what makes me a little sad about the popularity of your content and other content creators that are similar to you is that it makes me wonder and have a little bit of concern for all the people out there that are not finding this, you know, in their families. And that makes me a little sad, but then also very happy that people like you and content creators like you exist for that reason, you know?
It is. I mean, it is sad and it is hard. There are many people struggling that are not finding or seeking help. But I do feel like that has become something that I truly enjoy about what I do, is that I get to like reach my hand out through this screen or through my iPhone or whatever it is and say, here's something that you can connect with. You don't have to be sad all the time. You don't have to feel alone all the time. I'm here, and I want you to be part of this journey with me. Right. And I'm excited to be able to share that with the world.
Totally. And I appreciate
that. Sounds so cheesy.
No, but I was literally just about to say that I do appreciate you being very forthright and real with us on this podcast, because when I first like stumbled across your content and was discussing it with Youngmi, like I described it as like it was very like ASMR-y, like in a strange way for me at least, because
How interesting. I've never heard that before.
I was witnessing a family dynamic that was very different from what I was like raised with, and even like for someone like me, like who didn't have this sort of levity and laughter, and it's not a knock against my parents, like they have their own baggage and hangups, like it's just different. But seeing this exposure and seeing like, oh, this is a family dynamic that exists in the world, maybe I just seeing it is a knowledge that I can carry with me, and potentially when if and when I have a family of my own one day, like it's like a model that I could perhaps like carry and implement on my like for myself. But I think it's important that you just mentioned it's still like a distilled version for TikTok. Like you mentioned, there's ups and downs that you experience,
100%.
and you're not as a consumer of your content. I'm not seeing all facets of it. I'm just seeing like the joyful, light, levity, good parts.
Right. 100%. And that's everything, right? I try my best to present as much of a variety as I can without obviously bringing too much down.
Yeah.
But there are days where I just don't feel like creating content, or I feel sad, or I feel like singing. And those are the days that I'll use like my Instagram stories to just open up a little bit more. And on TikTok, people get to see, like I said, 30, 45, 60-second clips.
Right.
There's a lot more time in the day, a lot more time.
Yeah.
And, it's easy to distill your life and your joy into that 1-minute clip.
Yeah.
But I try to show the different faces as much as possible on Instagram.
Yeah, but
again, nobody wants to hear me yelling at my kids, like that they can't find their socks, and I'm like, go get your own socks. Like nobody wants that. You're late.
I think it's totally fine to not. I don't think that you should feel. I don't think you do, but like feel pressure to show every single aspect of your life. But how I feel. Sometimes people will post like comment on like my social media, like, oh, you're such a great mom, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, I am not a great.
You don't know.
I'm just showing you this. My son is just on YouTube all day, and then I yell at him. Like, that's the part you're not seeing. Like, so sometimes when people say, I'm like, yeah.
I have to keep. I mean, people ask me this all the time. People say, like, "Are you just laughing all the time? You must have abs of steel. You must be so happy all the time." And I'm happy a lot. I am. Yeah. But I work really, really hard, and my happiness does not come from the latest and greatest dad joke that I've heard. I guarantee you that alone is not enough to find happiness. And I really, truly believe that it has to come from within. And I have music. I've written songs and songs and songs about it. It has to come from within your body. It does not come from somebody else's joke or somebody else's body or somebody else's mind. It's yours. That is your gift. That is your thing to discover. That is your journey.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting that people would see your content and think that is showcasing your entire life.
But you touched on this before, how you've been singing like for a very long time, and it's not like you just like, you're incredibly talented at it, and you even described your I guess ascent into content creation. You kind of fell into it serendipitously, and I upon did some sleuthing and some research, and there are YouTube videos of you singing covers from years back. And this was before TikTok was even a thing. And, you're currently a mother of 2, but you've mentioned that you want to be a role model for mothers out there and show that it's possible to go back to doing what you love after thinking your chances were behind you. And I was wondering, can you elaborate on this some more?
Yeah, I would love to talk about this, because I think that it's really important that moms hear that other moms are going through the same thing. And I wanted to be a young mom. So I was on YouTube, like you said. I was posting covers, and there was a time where I was living in Japan, and we found ourselves there for just a little over a year. And with the time difference and connecting with family long distance, it was really hard. And so I found myself a little space on YouTube, and I would post covers, and that's how I practiced, and that's how I managed my time and all of that. And I came back to the States, and I joined a wedding band, and I started singing a little bit more here, and I started writing music for my own release. And then I kind of not only pressed the brakes, but pulled up my handbrake. And I said, I want to have a family. I want to have a family young, because I don't want to be so deep into this world of work and craziness of this world that I'm choosing that I don't have the time to stop. So I chose to have a child. We had a son. And I said I'd give myself, 6 months, and I'll go back to work. And 6 months came, and I just didn't feel like it was right. It didn't feel like I could go back with a clear conscience. And I know that so many moms, so many women struggle with this. Should I go back? Should I not? Do I have to go back? Do I not? And I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to. And so I feel very, very grateful for that every single day. I know that that's not a choice that a lot of women have, because some of them really just have to go back to work. So I stayed home a little bit longer, and then I got pregnant again. And so what turned out to be a planned 6 months off. I mean, my son is now 11. And I went back to work 2 years ago when he was 9, in the middle of a global pandemic. And I want to say that when my daughter turned 5, I was at probably a really, really low point where I was wondering I think I might have to just hang up my microphone and say goodbye to this life that I had anticipated having, and this life that I wanted to have, where I wanted to be touring, and I wanted to be singing, and I wanted to be on the road, and I wanted to be writing, and I wanted to be putting myself out there, because I saw my family now, and I was I don't want to leave them for weeks and months at a time. I don't want to do this where both parents are crazy busy and nobody has time for these kids. That just didn't feel right to me. That didn't feel like what I had anticipated for my family. And like I said, I somehow fell backwards into this after I had made this realization that, okay, I don't think my future is going to be what I thought it was going to look like. But, I still wanted it to be something small. And so when my daughter went back to kindergarten, I'm a very goal-oriented person. And so I had given myself this deadline that when she starts kindergarten, I am going to do something. I don't want to only be having my life revolve around my children. I loved being there for them. I loved doing the pickups, the drop-offs, the library, the whatever I had to do with them when they were younger. But I also needed something for me. There was something that was not satisfied. And so I was satisfying that side of myself with just small little things, writing and putting together little videos from YouTube. But then this pandemic hits, and like I said, I fell into it completely backwards. And once I saw that there was this opportunity to maybe pivot and do something slightly different, but also grow this amazing platform, or these amazing platforms, to then see what happens, I was like, okay, we have to change our mindset a little bit, but it is possible. It will require a lot of work, but it is possible.
You know what
Go ahead.
Oh no, finish your thought.
I just, when I hear from moms and I speak to other moms and they have that sort of despair, I'm like, yeah, that was me. I knew that feeling. And so many people say oh, I'm just a mom. There is no shame in being just a mom. That is one of the most difficult jobs to undertake, to be just a mom, because you are not just anything. You are a chef, you are a driver, you are a quality control over emotions, you are organizer, you are multitasker, you are everything, and a teacher, and a this, and a, like,
Yeah.
the job description is endless.
There's a lot,
So
yeah.
I sort of had to make my peace with the fact that this was going to be my true calling. But there was something that always felt like, ugh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah, for sure.
I don't feel 100% satisfied. I'm like 90%.
I think everyone knows that feeling. I mean, if you're somebody that's like doing, if you are, it's so funny because I used to have a podcast called Just Moms where we made fun of that phrase "just moms," but that's another stupid story. But I have so many thoughts on what you just said. I have a very similar path as you. I was like a stay-at-home mom. I didn't even start or attempt my career until I was 33. And then all in like a few months, I got a divorce. I started being a comedian. And I just wanted to do what I wanted to do because of that feeling that you just described. That like, that feeling that you're like, and I think, because I know you had been a singer-songwriter before your kids, but I had never even attempted doing anything until after. And I think the feeling that you just described, that yucky, like, oh God, I'm not doing the life that I want to live feeling, is so bad that for me, when I became a comedian and I had these horrible shows and like nobody laughed and I looked like an idiot and I drove out into the middle of Connecticut to do like 10 minutes, like these horrible things that would happen as a comedian. I was like, this feels bad, but it's nothing compared to that other shitty feeling of knowing that I'm not living the life that I want to live. So compared to that shitty feeling, I will do comedy. I will do a comedy show for 4 people in the back of a dive bar every night until the rest of my life, because that feels better than that yucky feeling. So I think it's such an inspiring message. Oh, and then I wanted to say one other thing. I think it's so interesting that you had this like dream of becoming a singer-songwriter, and you are known for that, but you are also known for the family life thing combined with these two huge strengths of your personality and parts of your life. You kind of like created a new kind of like artist by combining these two big fields in your life, which is which is very new. This is like this type of content creator and artist is pretty fresh, and I think that's super awesome too, because like not only are you getting fame through what you initially thought you would, singer or songwriter, but like also just like your life and who you are as a person.
I do think that that's really important for not only women to hear, but especially women to hear that we have to keep reinventing ourselves. We have to keep reinventing what we thought, because so much has changed over the years. I don't want to be that person that I wanted to be 20 years ago. Scratch that. I don't mean 20 years ago. I mean a long time ago.
Right.
Years ago.
Years and years ago. Cut that.
A long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to be on tour. I don't want to be, I mean, maybe one day I will go on tour and I'll do a short little tour, but I don't want to spend every single weekend away from my family. I don't want to do that. And I think reinventing yourself and being open to that is half of the battle. And I do want to say that I really think that the universe opened up to me when I finally threw my hands up and said, you know better. You know better than I do. I do not know. I will show up. I will do my thing. I will put in my effort. You take care of the rest. Like, you take the wheel.
That's interesting.
I love that. Wow. That's so profound and very inspiring. Because as I say,
so
like,
inspiring.
There's that phrase that goes
you.
like, luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. And I think for a lot of artists, like, it's a challenging field where you need to have like a very clear vision. But I see it in myself. I see it amongst my peers that sometimes we miss opportunities because we're just so steadfast and like have so much conviction in our original vision. But and in your story, like you said, let the universe take me where it goes. Like, I'm just a leaf in the wind. You know better. And by following that intuition, like you've struck a gold mine. And
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, and I think it's there's just so many facets of your story that I think that are clearly very inspiring. But I guess one is for me is just it's just never too late, because like in
No.
society it's hammered into us that like, especially in creative fields, like success is something that you should earn by like a relatively young, and like
Right.
if you're
Yeah.
in society, it's like everything's so ageist, like, well, once you're old, like you missed your shot, and there's so many
Right.
lists that remind you, like Forbes, like 30 under 30 and
Right.
this
Not
like
the
25
30
under
under
25
30.
Right.
and
Right.
but also I guess you mentioned like you did this for yourself, like this was purely out of like to satiate your inner artist, and this was like a
Yeah.
facet of your life that you had lost touch with and you wanted to reconnect with, and this was going to be in your words, like a small thing for me. Now this small thing has grown into a small
An unruly
thing,
beast.
right? Like a massive thing. Like what? And relatively, like over the course of 2.5
Yeah.
years, like how is this? How have you been transitioning? How's this all been for you?
I don't know.
Like,
I
do you
don't,
sleep?
I don't have
Like, I don't know.
sometimes. I think sleep is very, very important. So I do try to get as much as I can, as much rest as I can. But yeah, we were constantly towing that line
Right.
of how much is too much and how little is not, how much is not enough. It requires a lot of work, a lot of investment of time, and I don't know how I'm handling it all. Again, it's just one of those those not moments, but one of those feelings of like, I'm gonna just show up. You just take care of everything else. I will put my effort in, and I try my best to stay even keeled. I try not to let the highs be too high and the lows be too low, because I think when you start believing like your own propaganda, then you start losing control a little bit. And
Interesting.
I am constantly bringing my thought back to the here and now, and I think my kids do a really good job of helping me along that way.
Yeah.
And I came home from the Celtics game the other night, or I finished singing the anthem. I sat down at my seat, and my son came and like sat on top of me, and he's like, your seat is better, I'm gonna sit here.
Yeah.
And I was like, on my lap? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, also, I'm hungry, can you get me something to eat? And and I laughed, and we enjoyed that moment. But then like in the fourth quarter, my daughter came over, and she's like, are we going soon?
Oh my God, I love that.
I'm tired. And I'm like,
funny.
no, we're not going soon. We need to see this through.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys saw that game, but the last like 30 seconds was like outrageous.
Yeah.
It was insane. And we're like on the edge of our seats, and my daughter is looking at me with her eyes like kind of open, but she was asleep.
Right. Right.
And she was just like looking at me as if I was out of my mind because I was making her sit there. And I'm like, do you understand what this opportunity is?
Right.
But it just brought me right back to the fact that this is not what's important. What's important is that my 8-year-old is exhausted.
Right.
Her adrenaline is crashing too. And so I put her in my lap, and I just like sat with her a little bit. And as soon as we got in the car, I put her on my shoulder, and it was 2 seconds before she was out cold.
Yeah.
And I was a mom again, I was not the girl who sang at the Celtics game. I was just a mom who had to take her kid upstairs and get her ready for bed and make sure that she got enough rest to go to school the next day.
Well, you're all of those people all the time. That's the beauty of it.
But like you can't
yeah.
go home believing like, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Do you know where I just sang? Do you know what I just did? Do you know who I just rubbed
Your
shoulders
kids
with?
don't care.
Like my kids don't care. And
Yeah.
quite frankly, I shouldn't be using those things as any ways to validate myself or any of the accomplishments that I've experienced.
Yeah.
Like it is.
I agree
You
with
are
you.
just fortunate because you're in the right place at the right time, and your hard work is coming to this cool point. You have that moment.
Yeah.
You have that experience with gratitude and openness, and then you move on.
Yeah. And it's so grounding to have people who were there who liked you before all that. Because after all that happens, you don't know why those people are around you.
And my kids still want their sandwiches and their socks clean.
And it's like ground. Yeah. And I also totally believe what you said. Like, obviously you have, 8 million followers because you're extremely talented and your family dynamic is beautiful and you're funny, and all of those things are true. But also that shouldn't be important to people that love you. Do you know what I mean? So and that's like it shouldn't be the reason people love you, obviously.
100%.
So
100%.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. And that's so funny to hear that you have to deal with kids too, just like the rest of us.
I really, really do. I really, really do. And it's like, they're hilarious. And
they are hilarious, yeah.
They remind me daily, like, what is important daily.
YouTube.
They're constantly like, my son left.
That's what my son thinks is important. The Titanic.
Yes. My kids are constantly reminding me, like, hey, it's ice cream time. Get off your phone. Hey, I'm hungry. It's 10:30 in the morning and you haven't given me breakfast. And I'm like, you had breakfast. So they're like, yeah, but it's time for breakfast number 2.
Oh God, the dreaded breakfast number 2. It's like, you just had a bagel.
I know. Aren't you good until 3 p.m.? But yeah, it's grounding, and I love it, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't do it any other way.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Meanwhile, I'm over here, no kids, so I'm still riding off the high, young from a couple months ago. Hey, what's up? Do you know who I am? We did a Brooklyn comedy venue over here for our podcast.
Listen, man, you do you.
Ryan, I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you. I'm proud of us too.
I am proud of you guys too.
Oh, thank you. We're proud of you.
Well, Sheena, we're gonna shift gears a little bit and go into our somewhat rapid fire round.
Oh.
Yeah, we call it that, but there's no time restraint.
Right. There's no. I don't know why I keep calling it a rapid fire.
It's like rapid fire, but take your time. You have 20
minutes.
minutes.
Take your time too. The first thing we want to know, Sheena, is what is something you're loving right now?
What is something that I'm loving? The sun. The good weather.
The sun.
I am so loving it because I think we've all been under this like really weird cloud.
Oh my gosh.
Of crappy weather.
Is it public information where, like, what area you live in? Can I ask you that?
I live in Boston.
Oh, okay. Because I was just thinking if you're close by, then. Yeah, because it's finally becoming a little warm.
Where are you guys?
We're both in
New York.
Oh, north of New York. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's getting a little warmer
Finally.
all over the East Coast.
Yeah.
I know.
The sun. Love it.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a complicated relationship with the sun right now, but
yeah,
it's temporary.
Because your skin is hurting.
My skin is hurting. But conversely, what is something you're hating right now?
I have a love-hate relationship with, I don't want to say social media, but like this false reality on social media. I have a really, really hard time with it. And I try my best not to put that sort of thing out there, but it's something that I really, really struggle with, that like juxtaposition of real versus fake.
Is it like what people expect from you because of that image, or?
No, I don't think people expect any of that from me because I just don't give it to them.
Right.
But it's like sometimes you don't know what you're seeing is not necessarily what you get. And I have a really, really hard time when I see stuff and I'm like, that was totally curated. And no judgment, but why are you making this so much harder for people?
It is a difficult space to exist in, and
it really is.
Youngmi and I have talked about it, as hosts of a podcast, and I mentally I've had to separate like my being as whatever I put out public, like that's just the performative public version of me, and even if it's like I'm just relaying information verbatim from what's going on in my real life, it's more just like as a way to preserve my own like mental health, because just knowing that like if I don't create that separation, then it just gets really confusing and
Totally.
like mentally straining. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Totally. I get it. I totally get it.
yeah, and I imagine for someone like you with such a sizable following that yeah, it's like I think you gotta. I mean, do you establish like clear boundaries in your day to day of like I'm not gonna read these comments, or I'm not gonna check like X, Y, and Z?
I've tried that, but I really do like engaging with my audience.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really do. Like I sit there and I want to comment back
Yeah.
and I want to
Right.
answer my DMs, and I don't have people doing that for me.
Mm.
So as hard as it is, sometimes I want to say, nope, I'm not going to engage.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'm not going to go read those comments because some of them are mean.
Oh yeah.
But
Okay.
but I feel like I need to, because I don't want to take away from all of the other positive comments and all of the other positive people that are out there.
Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of celebrity that you are versus, you know, like the traditional celebrity where there is a huge like boundary between them and the public, whereas in a content creator, like influencer kind of person, you're very much, your work is about the engagement, you know. It's
Yeah.
exhausting. It's so hard. And I can't even imagine what you're, because I get, you know, like I'm just imagining what I have to go through, and I can't even imagine how hard it is.
I mean, there are definitely days. So there are definitely days and moments where I'm like, okay, today I need a little mental health check, and I'm not going to log on, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that. And there have been times where I've been approached by people and they're like, I sent you a message, you never responded. That's so rude.
Oh God.
And I'm like,
God.
I'm sorry. I
have 8 million
haven't
followers.
yet gotten- I don't want to say it like that. Like I don't.
Like,
Yeah. And people, then when I do respond, on the other hand, some people are like, oh my God, I never imagined that you would respond to this. So, you know, you get a little bit of everything, but
Yeah.
you have to create your own boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, before we hear your response to this next question, for our listeners out there, if you want to hear Sheena's response to what she's ashamed of, you're going to have to, this is where we keep our juicy answer. We put it behind our Patreon paywall, because
Yeah.
Okay.
this is a scintillating question right here. So yeah, listeners, if you want to hear what Sheena is ashamed of, you're going to have to go to our Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian and subscribe to hear her response. But without further ado, Sheena, what is something you're ashamed of? Well, Sheena, you know, I just want to thank you again for being so vulnerable
Thank
for
you.
sharing your story with all of us. But before we let
great.
you go, we like to ask all of our guests this one final question, and that is, what is something that you're proud of?
There's so many things. I'm proud of my family for banding together during this time to spread a little joy. I'm proud of the dynamics that we have spent a lot of time and hard work building. I'm proud of the music that's coming out really, really, really soon, within the next month. I'm proud to say those are my stories. And I feel like I'm proud of society in some weird way, and I know this is really cheesy, for like banding together to kind of create this reality for me.
I love
Is
that.
that super cheesy and super lame?
No, not
No.
at all. That was beautiful.
Not at all. Yeah, I was
I
like,
like how you
wow.
put that. I like how you put that. Yeah. I'm like,
Because I don't like to take credit for any of this. Like I don't feel like it's my victory. I feel like it's the world's victory. You know, like I feel like it's everybody working together and at the right place at the right time. I feel like if I put something out and the audience wasn't receptive to it, then it would just fall on its face. And I feel like
yeah.
if my kids were just not into it, then it would fall on its face. And I feel like just in general, if the universe wasn't aligned, then nothing would have happened, you know?
Well, I think, yeah, I think I see how you, I mean, I feel like it is you, and you should feel comfortable owning up to that, because it's totally fine too, but also
Yes, I'm so proud of myself.
just kidding. Finally. But But also, I think how I see it, and maybe this makes you uncomfortable, is there was this need for something, and you created the answer to that in people with your
That's
talent
very sweet.
and your, what you created. And that kind of is like working off of what you said, because it is like a synergy between two groups. But I think you can definitely feel ownership to that and feel proud of it.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
very, very kind of you to say.
Of course.
I have to come clean for something with you guys.
Oh, no.
I am on 3%
Okay.
Oh.
battery.
Well, good.
Well,
'cause
we're about to
This
end.
is real life.
Look at us.
We're about to
wow,
end.
look at
We're
a
about
true
to
I
end.
know.
professional.
I know, and I didn't just want it to fade to black. So,
Well, Sheena, thank you again for just being you. And
thank you.
yeah, I've certainly learned a lot about, I guess, my own process and just another leading myself through life with a little bit more levity and just giving myself to the universe, because who am
I
I?
love
I'm just like
that.
a speck of
Yay.
dust, and sometimes great things will happen and magic will happen
Yes.
when you
Yes.
just lend yourself to
Own it.
own
Yeah.
it. Yeah, lean into it.
Totally.
Thank
you.
Right, and for our listeners out there, where can they find you and your work online?
At Sheena Melwani, everywhere. So TikTok.com at Sheena Melwani, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat,
Awesome.
everywhere.
Sheena
All over. I'm
Sheena
at
Melwani. Love it.
Sheena Melwani.
And join one of her 8 million followers, please, if you're listening to this. If you haven't already.
Join us. Laugh with us. And I have new music coming out next month.
Oh.
I'm really excited to share that
So
with all
excited.
of
So
you.
excited to
Can't
see.
wait.
All right. How about you, Brian? Where can our listeners find you online?
You guys can find me at It's Brian Park on all socials. And what about you, Youngmi?
YM Mayor or Young Me Mayor on TikTok, and follow our podcast, Feeling Asian Podcast, everywhere. We have a YouTube channel now. And that's it. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.